Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And I have to bring you another very, very disturbing, probably the most disturbing true crime story and case that I've done thus far on my channel. And I've been talking about the state of Alabama and the craziness that's going on in their prison system with removing body parts from deceased inmates and returning them to their loved ones once they have passed in custody. And so there's a lot going on. Also, they had a guy who the state of Alabama put to death, and they used nitrogen gas for the first time in the history of America. That was their second attempt to put him to death. He was on death row. So the state of Alabama's got a lot going on, and there's a Governor Ivey who is the governor. So if you ever want to write letters and see what's going on and how they're inhumanely treating inmates in the penal system, is Governor Ivey. But this one is even disturbing. And then there was a major shooting a few weeks ago over Valentine's Day weekend, or during that period, where about 8 or 9 people had gotten shot in Birmingham. So Birmingham is turning into a little bit of Chicago. And I want to talk about this latest case. As I say, viewer discretion advised. Please be 18 over to listen to this, or even 21 and over. And I'm going to try to curtail it as much as possible. But this is about Mahogany Jackson's captors recorded her torture and horrific final moments, police testify. Mahogany Jackson, a Birmingham mother, held against her will and tortured for hours before she was killed by a gunshot to the back of her head, was stripped, handcuffed, beaten, spit on, and forced to perform acts at gunpoint, a detective testified on Monday. The horrifying ordeal was recorded by some of the 8 suspects that are charged in Jackson's death, police testified. Some of the suspects, or 3 of the suspects, are Brandon Pope, 24, Francis Ace Harris, 25, and Jeremy Kodak McDowell, 18, are all charged with capital murder. Authorities said on Monday that Harris is the suspect they believe fired the fatal shot. A projectile was removed from Jackson's head. This is a very sad case, and I have 2 daughters, and it's taken all my strength to even do this case. Jackson leaves behind a 3-year-old daughter. 5 others are charged with felony murder. Tasia Lewis, 26, Sanaya McCall, 23, Giovanni Clapp, 23, Blair Green, 25, and Ariana Lachey Robinson, 23. They are all accused of first-degree kidnapping and first-degree sodomy. Additionally, Lewis and Clapp are also charged with second-degree assault for allegedly pistol whipping Miss Jackson. The 3 capital murder suspects are being held without bond. Man, this is a tragic, terrible story. The 5 suspects not charged with capital offense appeared Monday before Jefferson County Judge Keisha Davis. After hearing almost 2 hours of chilling testimony, the judge ruled that there was no conditions under which the suspects could be released on bond, that they would on bond that would keep the community safe, or even the suspects safe. The community is outraged, Judge Davis said. Lewis and Green also had their bonds on previous charges revoked. Lewis for discharging a firearm into an occupied building, and Green for burglary. Mahogany Jackson's mother, Gail Maddox Trotter, was in court for the testimony and visibly distraught throughout the proceedings. Obviously, it was another difficult day for the family hearing that testimony, said Jefferson County District Attorney Danny Carr. We assured them that we're going to do the best we can to bring justice and hold them accountable for the horrific acts perpetrated against Mahogany. This is a marathon, not a sprint, Carr said, of the trek towards justice. The investigation began just before 8 a.m. on Sunday, February 25th, when Jackson messaged family members that she was being held hostage in apartment 3 at Serenity Apartments in southwest Birmingham. She sent her location and told them not to call her, but to call the police. Her body was found in the early morning hours of Monday, February 26th, under a mattress in an illegal dump site in the 1700 block of Laurel Avenue that is known as Dead Man's Road. Wow, they got a street called Dead Man's Road in Birmingham. Unbelievable. Under questioning by Jefferson County Deputy District Attorney Sharissa Henrich, Birmingham Homicide Detective Mark Green testified in detail at Monday's Anaya's Law hearing about Jackson's ordeal. Green testified that as investigators were at the site where Jackson's body was found, a witness contacted police with details and videos of what had taken place. They even videotaped torturing this Miss Mahogany young lady, Miss Jackson. The witness told police Harris told him he shot Jackson and he identified all of those involved in Jackson's abduction. There were 5 videos in all, Green said. Most of the videos were recorded by McDowell, with portions of them also videoed by McCall. The abduction began at McMillan Avenue home of Pope, Green said. Authorities said Jackson arrived at Pope's home Saturday night with several other suspects, all of whom she knew. She knew all of these individuals. One of the videos taken outside Pope's house showed Lewis and McCall stumping and spitting on Jackson. Jackson was on the ground, Green testified, while she was repeatedly assaulted by several of the suspects. At one point, Lewis was straddling Jackson while punching her in the head. The video shows Jackson saying that her attackers had won and to just let her go. In one of the videos, Green testified Lewis was seen taking off Ms. Jackson's shirt. Lewis also videotaped dragging the semi-nude Jackson by her hair toward a vehicle. McCall was seen on the video yelling for someone to pop the trunk, Green said. Clapp, he said, was recording at that point. Ms. Jackson then was moved to Serenity Apartments, where Lewis and McCall were roommates. 4 more videos were recorded there, the detective said. Jackson was then shown being forced to perform acts on defendant Blair Green. Lewis and McCall, the detective said, were holding Jackson at gunpoint, forcing her into the essay acts. The essay was taking place at McCall's bedroom. Lewis, investigator Green said, was holding the back of Jackson's head, and McCall was holding the gun and recording the assault. Clapp, he said, was also present and urging on the essay, saying Jackson better do it right. McCall, the detective said, threatened something would happen to Jackson if Blair Green did not enjoy himself. At one point, McCall made Jackson pull down her pants and told McDowell to essay her. There was no testimony indicating another assault took place. All of the subjects were at Lewis's apartment at one time or another while Jackson was being held against her will. Robinson, Detective Green said, got there not long before the ordeal ended, but was seen on video getting in Jackson's face and pinning her against the wall. She was repeatedly assaulted during that encounter. Suspect Green and Clapp had left at that point. Jackson was then taken from Lewis's apartment by Pope, Harris, and McDowell, the investigator said. Authorities believe she was then fatally shot shortly after sending the message to her family. What a sad commentary. After they left, Lewis, McCall, and Robinson said they went to pick up Robinson's children. When initially questioned by police, Lewis and McCall denied any knowledge of the incident. They changed their statements after being shown the videos, Green testified. Attorneys for the 5 felony murder suspects attempted to lessen their client's culpability in the crime. Suspect Green's attorney said his client did not touch or harm Miss Jackson while she was being forced to perform acts on him. Some of the other attorneys admitted their clients may have participated in the assaults, but were not present when Miss Jackson was killed. The detective testified at least 2 statements being made throughout Jackson's captivity alluding to death, including that Jackson was fixing to die. This was a horrific attack perpetrated against Miss Jackson, Henrich said. She was subjected for a period of time to, there's no other way to say it, torture, which ultimately led to her death. The nature of these offenses was horrific, Henrich said. I have 2 daughters in their 20s, and I typically wouldn't do such a heinous story and crime. This, out of all the stories, true crime stories that I've done, this touches my heart the most. Having 2 daughters in their 20s, the state of affairs that young people are in today, and especially young people of color. You see videos of tons of looting and shoplifting taking place in Chicago, New York, California, Philadelphia, and as always, the majority of them are people of color. We just have to admit it. And these fatherless homes that have been around, and the vanishing and the vacatedness of no fathers in these homes in these urban cities is causing such a deleterious effect on the moral fabric of the black family. All of Mahogany was a black female. The suspects are black, and at some point as a black community, we have to look in the mirror and take accountability for these kids raising themselves. This purging that's taking place. 90% of crimes that are taking place in the urban market are based on proximity and knowing those individuals, and the perpetrator and the victim typically looks very similar to each other and are typically of the same race. And this is one of the reasons I started a YouTube channel and a TikTok channel, because we have to talk about this. And as a man in his mid-50s, we are going to lose an entire generation to death, incarceration, and mayhem. This is a very sad case. She even has a 3-year-old daughter who will not grow up with her mother. You also know that the gossip and the chit-chat about Mahogany Jackson's death is going to be a fervor for the next 30 years. This is how egregious this scenario is. And as you know, I've done several videos on how the state of Alabama is treating their incarcerated inmates and prisoners. And for these individuals, if they did perpetrate this crime, the state of Alabama will have a place for them for the rest of their lives. And the state of Alabama has capital murder and death row. And there is no way on God's green earth that these individuals, if they did this, should ever get out of jail, and probably should be sentenced to death row. I'm not a very high advocate for death row, but if that's what the circumstance and if that's what's placed on these perpetrators' plate, then they have to eat that and digest it. And I'm not opposed to life in prison without parole. And once these male perpetrators go to prison and the inmates find out what they did to this young African-American woman, they are going to have a hard time in prison for the rest of their lives. And the state of Alabama has a bed and a cell for each and every one of these individuals, male and female. This is such a sad case. Young people have to make the right decisions. Do not pick the right friends. You got to pick the right boyfriend, pick the right husband or wife. Utilize your five senses that God has given you. Your gut will tell you a lot about life and what decisions you should make. Don't be a flock of sheep. Be a wolf, especially for young urban individuals, because many of these kids today are doing all the wrong things. So if you see a scenario where the majority of your friends in your neighborhood are not going to school, then you should go to school. Do just the opposite in a positive way than joining the flock of sheep and doing all the negative stuff that the majority of these people are doing. And we have to talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. Us middle-aged folks that are parents need to look in the mirror. We need more mentorship. We need more love connections, and helping these kids go back to realizing that education means everything. Back in the 70s and the 80s, it was the gateway to freedom for people of color. And now we have gotten completely away from it and have lost all our moral turpitude, and we will do anything by any means necessary to chase the bag. And worshiping athletes and entertainers is all a distraction. It's very important to put something in your brain, food for your brain and your soul, and live in a positive, nurturing way. Miss Jackson cannot get her life back. Her child will be forever traumatized. Miss Jackson's mother, her family, will never be the same. And these individuals, when they get convicted, they will never be the same, and their families will never be the same. This has an entire deleterious effect on the entire community in Birmingham, Alabama. As I stated before, there was several shootings, 8, 9, 10 people that got shot during the Valentine's Day period, which is supposed to be a holiday of love, and it turned into a holiday of destruction in Birmingham. Whatever is going on in Birmingham, Alabama, is demonic and devilish, and Governor Kay needs to put a spotlight on it. A lot of this, again, is kids are not going to school, they're fatherless homes, they're raising themselves, and we have done a poor example of being leaders and trying to navigate these kids in the right direction. By the time a kid gets to be 10, 11 years old, and if you haven't disciplined them and showed them the proper ways to navigate their way through life, and by 6 or 8 years old, 10 years old, by the time they're teenagers, it's too late. Social media has replaced us as parents. Everything they can get is at a push of a button. And these young people are making one poor decision after another. And this chasm and axiom of these kids today, they have no fear of going to prison. Where when I grew up in the 70s, you had a fear of your parents, let alone the police, and going to jail. These kids are fearless, and that is a very worrisome dynamic that is taking place. They don't fear their teachers. They will fight their teachers. They will cuss their mothers out. They would definitely cuss a stranger out. And we have to be able to wipe that whole slate away of this negativity and debauchery and get back to a civilized society. Other than that, we're going to have an entire generation that will go towards the road of chaos and craziness versus positivity and constructive behavior. And it will lead to civil unrest, and it will lead to mass incarceration. Who to blame? I don't know. But we need more police officers, good police officers. We need more parents. We need more Black male role models in these homes, in these schools, to mentor and show these young people how to navigate their life in the right and appropriate direction. This is an atrocious crime where we are seeing that young people do not have the word humanity in their vocabulary, or the humanness of a human being. There is such a fine line, a minuscule pinpoint between life and death today. And when these young folks are making decisions uh, that can impact their lives in a positive or negative way, I don't think they're consciously understanding what the dynamics are of taking one's life. And you're seeing this happen way too often in Chicago, Philadelphia, California, all over this country. And we're supposed to be a first world country, and we're turning into a third world nemesis of the American citizens right here in our own backyard. You see that there's civil unrest taking place in Haiti. Uh, Love conquers hate, and many of these young folks have such low self-esteem and self-hatred for themselves that they are projecting this out towards other people. How could you do this to this young lady? I don't care what the accusations are that she said or done to any of these people, these perpetrators. To torture this young lady, videotape it, and all of that is just mind-boggling. So we need to stay prayerful. We need more therapists. We need more psychologists. We need more great teachers. We need more great police officers. We need more great doctors, lawyers, judges, and we need to lead our lives in a much more constructive, positive way. Tell me what you think. This was a very difficult video to do, and let's be prayerful for Mahogany Jackson's family. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth in a positive, righteous, and God-fearing way.